Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utupada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadupam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitamsya He Krishna Karana Sindho Dino Bandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pagvam Langaite Girim Yat Krupatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dina Tharinam. I seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas. I seek forgiveness for any transgressions I may commit while speaking. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are going to read from second canto, the Cosmic Manifestation, chapter 10, which is the last chapter of this particular canto. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. This is a very profound chapter, and particularly the verses, the ending verses are very, very impactful. They're summarizing and giving us a lot of overview. Unfortunately, 44 and 45, the two verses that I'm supposed to cover today. I was sick for the past so many days and I have not been able to prepare. So please bear with me. But blessing in disguise, Prabhupada's purports are, very detailed. So I'll depend on the purports and just repeat whatever Prabhupada says. Hare Krishna. Verse number 44. Ittam Bhagavate Katito Bhagavan Bhagavato Tamaha Ittam Bhagave Bhavena hi Param Drushtam Arhanti Suryaha. The great transcendentalist thus described the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the pure devotees deserve to see more glorious things in transcendence beyond these features. The Lord is not only the creator and the destroyer of the material manifestations of his different energies. He is more than a simple creator and destroyer, for there is his feature of Ananda, or his pleasure feature. This pleasure feature of the Lord is understood by the pure devotees only and not by others. The impersonalist is satisfied simply by understanding all pervasive influence of the Lord. This is called Brahman realization. Greater than the impersonalist is the mystic who sees the Lord situated in his heart as Paramatma and the partial representation of the Lord. But there are pure devotees who take part in the direct pleasure, Ananda potency of the Lord by factual reciprocation of loving service. The Lord in his abode, called the Vaikuntha planets, which are eternal manifestations, always remain with his associates and enjoys transcendental loving services by his pure devotees in different transcendental humors. The pure devotees of the Lord thus undergo a practice of that devotional service to the Lord during the manifestation of the creation and take full advantage of manifestation by qualifying themselves to enter the kingdom of God. Bhagavad Gita 18.55 confirms this. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yavan yas chashmi tattvataha tato mam tattvataho gnatva vishayate tad anantaram. By development of pure devotional service, one can factually know the Lord as He is, and thus be trained in bona fide service of the Lord, and be allowed to enter into the direct association of the Lord in so many capacities. The highest glorious association with the Lord is made possibly in the planet of Goloka Vrindavan, where Lord Krishna enjoys himself with gopis and his favorite animals, the Surabhi cows. A description of this transcendental land of Krishna is given in Brahma Samhita, which is considered by Lord Sri Chaitanya to be the most authentic literature in this connection. So let me finish verse number 45 also, and then we can come back to 44 and talk about it. Verse number 45. Nasya karmani gnanamadu gnana janmadav. Sorry, please forgive me. Parasyano vidhi yate kartutva prati shodhaya mayaya ropitam hi tata. Translation. There is no direct engineering by the Lord for his creation and destruction of the material world. What is described in the Vedas about his direct interference is simply to counteract the idea that material nature is the creator. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Vedic direction of the creation maintenance and destruction of the material world is this. Yatho va imam bhutani gnate yena jatani jivanti yat paryante abhisma vishanti. That is, everything is created by Brahman. After creation, everything is maintained by Brahman, and after annihilation, everything is conserved by Brahman. Gross materialists, without any knowledge of Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagwan, conclude material nature is to be the ultimate cause of the material manifestations. And the modern scientists also share this view that the material nature is the ultimate cause for all manifestations of the material world. This view is refuted by all Vedic literature. The Vedanta philosophy mentions that Brahman is the fountainhead of all creation, maintenance, and destruction. And Srimad Bhagavatam, the natural commentation on the Vedanta philosophy, says, Janmadya asya yatho nyayad itarasta charatsva adha adhigna sarvata, etc. Inert matter is undoubtedly energy with potential to interact, but it has no initiative of its own. Srimad Bhagavatam therefore comments on the aphorism Janmadya Asya by saying Abhignaha and Sarvataha, that is, the Supreme Brahman is not inert matter, but he is supreme consciousness and is independent. Therefore, inert matter cannot be the ultimate cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. Superficially, material nature appears to be the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction. But material nature is set into motion for creation by Supreme Conscious Being, the personality of Godhead. He is the background of all creation, maintenance, and destruction. And this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.10. Mayadakshena Prakruti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kaunteya Jagad Viparyantate. The material nature is one of the energies of the Lord, and she can work under the direction of the Lord Adhyakshena. When the Lord throws his transcendental glance over the material nature, then only can the material nature act as a father contacts the mother, who is then able to conceive a child. Although it appears to the layman that the mother gives birth to the child, the experienced man knows that the father gives birth to the child. The material nature therefore produces the moving and standing manifestations of the material world after being contacted by the Supreme Father and not independently. Considering material nature to be the cause of creation, maintenance, etc., is called the logic of nipples on the neck of a goat. The Chaitanya Charitamrita of Srila Krishnadasa Kaviraj Goswami describes this logic of Ajagala Sthana Nyaya as follows, as explained by His Divine Grace Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. The material nature as the material cause is known as Pradhan, and as effective cause is known as Maya. But since it is inert matter, it is not remote cause for creation. Kaviraj Goswami states as follows: Atave Krishna Mula Jagat Karana Prakriti Karanena Yachit Ajagala Sthana. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 5.61. Because Karnodakashayi Vishnu is a plenary expansion of Krishna, it is he who electrifies the matter to put it in motion. The example of electrification is quite appropriate. A piece of iron is certainly not fire, but when the iron is made red hot, certainly it has the quality of fire, though its burning capacity, through its burning capacity. Matter is compared to the piece of iron, and it is electrified or made red hot by the glance or manipulation of the supreme consciousness of Vishnu. Only by such electrification is the energy of matter displayed in various actions and reactions. Therefore, the inert matter is neither efficient nor the material cause of the cosmic manifestation. Sri Kapila Dev has said, Yathol Mukhad Vishpalgu Vishpal Gada.
Maybe you can move the screen also down, Prabhu. I think we.
Oh, sorry.
No
I didn't
problem.
realize. Yat yeah. Dhumat Vapi Swa Sambhavat Api Atmaveni Bhi Matat Yathagni Praghat Ulmukhi. Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 28th chapter, 40th verse. Please forgive me, I'm so bad with the Sanskrit. The original fire, its flame, its sparks, and its smoke are all one, for fire is still fire, yet is different from the flame. Flame is different from sparks, and sparks are different from the smoke. In every one of them, namely in the flame, in the sparks, and in the smoke, the integrity of the fire is present. Yet all of them are differently situated with different positions. The cosmic manifestation is compared to the smoke, because when smoke passes over the sky, so many forms appear, resembling many known and unknown manifestations. The sparks are compared to living entities, and the flames are compared to the material nature. Pradhan, one must know that each and every one of them is effective simply because of being empowered by the quality of the virginal fire. Therefore, all of them, namely the material nature, the cosmic manifestation and living entities, are but different energies of the Lord, fire. Therefore, those who accept the material nature as the cosmic manifestations, original cause, Prakriti, the cause for creation according to Sankhya philosophy, are not correct in their conclusion. The material nature has no separate existence without the Lord. Therefore, setting aside the Supreme Lord as the cause for all causes is the logic of Ajagala Sthana Nyaya, or trying to milk the nipples on the neck of the goat. The nipples on the neck of the goat may seem like sources of milk, but try to get milk from such nipples will be foolish. Okay, so this was a long purport, but very, very profound. Actually, both the purports were very profound. Quick glance at 44. Uh, the translation says, the great transcendentalist thus described the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the pure devotees deserve to see more glorious things in transcendence beyond their features. Now, Prabhupada is actually explaining a couple of things in the purport. Uh, the Lord is not, Prabhupada, what is he saying? The Lord is not just a simple creator and destroyer. There is something more to it than creating and destroying. The Lord has the potential for pleasure, ananda, and this ananda feature is not understood by anyone else other than the devotees, because the ananda feature is so personal. Only when you get associated to the person do you understand what makes the person happy and what doesn't make the person happy. So if you are not a devotee, you are either what do you say? I'm so sorry. Today I'm so bad. The impersonalist. If you are an impersonalist, then you are actually looking at Brahman and Paramatma, both of which don't have the Ananda feature. And because of which, what happens is there is no reciprocation of this loving nature. And this results in not only the living entity not having any pleasure, which he is, uh, by his constitutional position, is uh, having that capacity, but it is not being fulfilled. The Lord is also not, being served because of that reason. Let's move on to 45. 45 is much more, detailed. Now, it's very clearly being said in the translation that there is no direct engineering by the Lord, in the creation and destruction of the material world. It's all described in the Vedas, you know. So I think I'm having difficulties paraphrasing it. There's no direct engineering by the Lord for creation and destruction of the material world. What is described in the Vedas about his direct interference is simply to counteract the idea that material nature is the creator. So if we have an idea like how the material scientists have, oh, nature by itself creates everything and destroys everything. It goes through this cycle automatically. And to counteract that, the Vedas are giving this intermediary or interference that he is directly involved. But the fact is, his energies are involved and he is not directly involved. So the Vedic direction of creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world, everything is created by Brahman. After creation, everything is maintained by Brahman. And after annihilation, everything is conserved by Brahman. And this is acknowledged by the gross materialists like Brahman, gross materialists without any knowledge of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. They don't have any idea of these things. Science even today doesn't acknowledge the soul exists. All they think is if given the right conditions, given the right chemicals, you can produce life. And till date, they have been trying this over I think it's been a century that they have tried this particular experiment and they have not succeeded. They'll not be able to succeed because it requires the divine intervention. It is the Lord who actually puts the seed into the womb. Even though we think it is the man and the woman who actually, combine to procreate, it's actually the Lord and the Lord's will that the procreation happens. So science will never be able to establish or create life on its own. The Vedanta philosophy mentions that Brahman is the fountainhead of all creation, maintenance, and destruction. And Srimad Bhagavatam, the natural commentation on Vedanta philosophy, says Janmadhya Asya, and so on. Now comes the more important thing. Inert matter is undoubtedly energy with potential to interact, but it has no initiative of its own. So we all know Newton's law of inertia. Any object that is in a state of motion or that is in stagnation will continue to be so until and unless an external force acts on it. So if you look at it, the entire universe or entire multiverse, whatever you want to call it, all these objects that are moving and otherwise is moving only because there is an external energy that is coming from the Lord. Without this, there is nothing that can happen. There can be no sun, there can be no moon, there can be no, explosions of these gigantic explosions of these stars. There can be no fire within the stars, and all the light and heat that we receive. None of this can happen because, as Newton has described, and as our Vedas are describing, as our Acharyas are describing, inert matter has only a potential, but it doesn't have the ability to do it. The ability comes from the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam therefore comments on the aphorism of Janmadhya Asya by saying Abhijana, Abhignaha and Swarat. The Supreme Brahman is not inert matter, but he is supreme consciousness and is independent. Therefore, inert matter cannot be the ultimate cause for creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. Material nature is set into motion for creation by the supreme conscious being, the personality of Godhead. He is the background of all creations, maintenance, and destruction, and this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 10. And what is being said there? Maya jakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagad viparyantate. Again, material nature is one of the energies of the Lord. She can work under the direction of the Lord, Adhyakshena. When the Lord throws his transcendental glance over the material nature, then only the material nature act as father, then only the material nature act. So it's very clearly being explained here that the Lord is outside this system. He is not within. He is glancing, and his glance is so powerful that it not only, uh, unleashes, uh, in this case, um, it is the material nature. She is actually the energy of the Lord, Maya Shakti. With that, what he does, she actually sets everything in motion through her energies, and then the Lord actually glances, and his glance actually causes the living entities to be impregnated into the material nature. And Prabhupada actually gives this concept of father contacting the mother and then how the child is born. For the layman, it looks like the mother is the one who is giving birth, but actually it is the father who sets this process in. The material nature, therefore, produces the moving, standing manifestations of the material world after being contacted by the Supreme Father and not independently. And this example of the goat having, it has these nipples on its neck. And if somebody thinks they can milk this nipple, then they're being very foolish. Now, the next paragraph, Prabhupada is actually talking about, because Karnataka Vishnu is a plenary expansion of Krishna, it is he who electrifies the matter to put it in motion. The example of electrification is quite appropriate. A piece of iron is certainly not fire, but when iron is made red hot, certainly it has the quality of fire through its burning capacity. Now, Prabhupada is giving a very, very, down to earth example of how iron, behaves like fire. But if you really look at our sun, and if you look at so many other, stars in the sky, all of them are nothing but, they are burning masses of, different types of elements. You can't imagine there are stars which are completely composed of, we generally think stars are only composed of helium, but there are stars which are composed of completely of iron or even other material, all the way up to diamond, and these exist in the universe, and all of them are producing fire. And that, you can imagine our own sun is millions of miles away, and the sparks that is being produced by that sun, the light is what actually allows this planet and the living entities in this planet to live. So, matter is compared to the piece of iron, and it is electrified or made red hot by the glance or manipulation of the supreme consciousness of Vishnu. Only by such electrification is the energy of matter displayed in various actions and reactions. Therefore, inert matter is neither efficient nor material cause of the cosmic manifestation. So, it's very clear from this, we can actually use this particular purport when we are actually talking to somebody who is not a devotee and who is not willing to accept that Brahman, in the sense Bhagavan is not the supreme and Brahman is the supreme, or in some other places, impersonalists believe there is no God, and in that sort of situation, we can actually use this purport. It has a lot of arguments and discussions that can help us establish how the Lord works, and how he is there and he is doing all of this for our sake. I will stop here. I don't know if I was even, I made any sense. Please forgive me. If you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and
Hare
Hare Krishna,
Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Somebody is talking. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
No, you go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. It was a wonderful class, Prabhu. Very nice information. I have one quick question, Prabhu. Somewhere I heard that when Vishnu glanced the Pradhana, material nature, his vision actually carried by Sadashiva, I believe, right? And then Durga Devi helped the manifestation. Is there a reference to this? I just wanted to see whether it is mentioned in the Bhagavatam or somewhere else.
I've not really seen this or read this, but if you really look at, we have that huge art of creation, the spiritual sky. There, actually, you can see that there is one more line that comes through, which where Shambhu, the glance of the Lord is referenced as Shambhu, and then, the abode of Sadashiva and all those things are referred. There is also references to Brahma Samhita in the same chart. I'm not actually studied this in detail, so I don't know if I can comment. But probably if you look at the chart, you may get the answers by going through that Brahma Samhita sections.
Do you know where exactly? Can you send me the link, Prabhu?
Yeah, I can send you that chart, Prabhuji. I can send you that chart.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Balram Prabhu, you wanted to say something?
I was thinking about the Sankarshana because, of course, this is the
Mhm.
manifestation from the Supreme Lord. He
Mhm.
expands himself as six, what do you call that? Sankarshana, Anuruddha, Pradyumna.
Mhm. Yeah.
So Sadashiva comes from Sankarshana. So basically, Krishna can do everything, but he has to do from his um, avatar or incarnation or whatever. So it is coming through Sankarshan and as a Sadashiva. That's what I understand. Because it's not Krishna is not taking care of himself, right? It's always coming from an expansion.
Mhm.
Garbhodakasha, Ikshirodakasha, sorry, Karanodakasha. But the Sankarshana feature, I think that's Sadashiva. That's what it is.
Where
But
is that
anyway,
reference, Prabhu?
I was thinking about your class, Prabhu.
Mhm.
I feel that most of the verses, if I look at the purport, the explanation is there in many verses, especially with the Brahman, Paramatma, and
Mhm.
Bhagwan. And then that was the first previous verse. And the sixth verse, the recent verse, what is read, also gives that seed, Aham Bija Pradapita. So
Mhm.
that means no matter what the Bhagavad Gita says, that it's Krishna only. So it's emphasizing. I'm feeling, why is he repeating again and again and again in
Mhm.
this word, this canto, next canto, and the other canto? Most of the times we read, but I think and sometimes Sensei is the same Srimad Bhagavatam. Why is he repeating every time? Sometimes I was hearing sometime one time I heard in from a lecture from Amarendra Prabhu. He said, we feel it is there in the every verse, but what is this we are learning? That means he is emphasizing us and repeating us every time to
Mhm.
make us understand and go deep into it. If you just hear from one verse and another verse, oh, it's the same thing.
Mhm.
But we have to go, why he has, Prabhupada has mentioned and Srimad Bhagavatam mentioned, that means we should go deep into it. Then only we are get the understanding better. Something like that. So I thought maybe highlight that point, because
Mhm.
even I was feeling the same. Oh, I've already heard this. I've already heard this. But maybe there is some for a reason why Srimad Bhagavatam is emphasizing more and more on this particular aspect. So that's all. That's all, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That was a wonderful comment. Actually, if you look at it, uh, when Prabhupada is giving his purpose, it looks like he is repeating, but every time there is a subtle difference between these things. There's so much difference between similar explanations that you see. Even in Srimad Bhagavatam itself, we'll come across, even in the third canto, we'll come across the same series. Whereas in the first canto and second canto, it is 101 of creation, very, very basic. When actually Vidura meets Maitreya, you know, Vidura knows everything. And Maitreya also knows that Vidura knows everything of Srimad Bhagavatam. In spite of that, Vidura tells Maitreya Muni that, hey, I want to hear, the creation, like if you look at it, we have already seen this. Brahma learns about creation from whom? From the Lord himself. And then it is Narada Muni who learns about creation from, Brahma. Then Vyasa learns about creation from Brahma, and so on and so forth. So there are these many, many versions that people have heard which are given down to us. And now Maitreya Muni is going to give us another, and this is actually not the 101 version, but this is something more advanced. It is either 201, 301, 401, whatever you want to call it. It's so much more elevated, and the topics that will be described there and talked about will be, or definitely different. But when Prabhupada tries to explain it, he not only tries to bring back some of the basics into it, but also he talks about these subtle differences and how, you know, these particular versions of discussions are bringing up different nuances of creation. So it looks like we're talking about the same thing, but it is not. Just wanted to make that clear, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Prabhu, that's another thing you mentioned. Bhagavatam, when we read,
Yes.
you are reading Bhagavatam, but we are all listening from you, hearing from you. Yes. So, but the Bhagavatam actually, the real Bhagavatam comes in our understanding of absorption of what we hear, how we observe, and what we get. So basically, absorption means, as you also just mentioned, that it may not be the same thing, but every time when you read the same verse, you are getting different kind of understanding. That means Krishna is revealing in your heart, this is what it is, this is what is. That means Prabhupada is actually bringing up in this purports from the first canto all to the last canto, right? So that means whenever he is writing and writing, more revelations are coming, and with the same verse, same understanding, but it's a different understanding every time. So that means Prabhupada is revealing his heart on how Krishna is revealing in his heart, and to understand, then is expanding and expanding and expanding. That's how all the acharyas are also getting their own realizations and putting forth in this discussion of, because if you see the Jiva Goswami, his complete understanding, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, it's completely different understanding. It's not different understanding, it's understanding the same, but in a different realm, right? So I feel that is what the Krishna, when you are absorbed more and more and more, that means Krishna as a super soul looking in his heart, how sincere we are, and he reveals himself in our heart accordingly. So more absorption is required. I think that's what I understand with this verses of how we read, but how we understand is by the revelations what Krishna is giving in our heart.
Yes.
That's all I thought, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you for bringing that, Prabhu. I just had that realization while you were reading the purport, this point about iron being red hot and getting the characteristics of fire. We might have heard it so many times, but it was so striking as you were reading the purport, Radha KunjaBihari Prabhu. And, the visual image of it, and somehow a deeper conviction that the process actually works. All we need to do is the proximity of iron to the fire. That's all we need. And then naturally, all the contaminations, everything will go away. And, it's just thinking of yesterday's discussion, the Vaishnava etiquette, how do we develop and what do we do? It's like, that association with the fire is actually, can make the iron also into the same characteristic as Balaram Prasad Prabhu you were describing. It's the same point. How many times you would have heard, but it's such a, like, in front of me, I was actually seeing this iron becoming like a fire, and then it can impact and act as fire for others also. Whatever comes closer to this iron rod, which has become like fire, it can actually infuse that to others also. I was like, wow, this is pretty powerful. So anyone can become a devotee and can, influence others also. So that realization became much more deeper. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Actually, you bring back, like yesterday evening in our Bhagavatam reading group, we actually went over time, and the discussion was all about how to balance, for all these new comers into the movement. How do we balance devotional service at the temple and other places with social commitments? And the whole discussion centered around how if we start doing devotional service, slowly and steadily, even though initially we are in this, dilemma, the dilemma starts melting away. And even some of the people with whom we are interacting, even in that state of where we are not very pure, even now I am not pure. So even in that state, others get influenced. And that is because of what you said. Iron may be the hardest substance, but when it comes in contact with the fire, it not only becomes like fire, but it also burns away any contaminations and it becomes pure iron. So, and anything that comes in contact with that iron will also burn the same way, And so, yeah, Mataji, thank you for that analogy, like Vaishnava etiquette and other things. When we interact with pure devotees, we'll probably, my iron heart will also get some of that fire in me and then convert me into a better Vaishnava. Thank you so much.
It's also burning, Prabhu, your heart.
No, that is the reason why we run away from it, correct? Or I run away from it.
Thank you. It's already working in your case. We can see that. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And it's almost 8.
No, it burns actually. The more ghee will help Prabhu to burn.
Yeah, Prabhuji. I completely agree. Thank you so much. If there are no more discussions, or Prabhu, you wanted to say something else, Prabhuji?
No, ghee is the one which is our heart. That means our ears has to be more and more listen to that. That then that fire comes in and flames and burns. Krishna comes in our heart and then gives that revelation. So the hearing process is the ghee.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I don't know. It's my concoction anyway. Hare Krishna.
No, it's an analogy you're trying to make. That's fine, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. We are now at 8:12. Thank you everyone for being here. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo ananta koti vaishnava. Hare Krishna.